Look, if you've ever tried to pin down the definitive formula for building a successful startup, you know the sheer volume of advice out there is honestly enough to make your head spin, right? Well, let's just cut through all of that noise today. In this explainer, we're going to map out the absolute chaos of entrepreneurial theory into a brilliant, totally usable visual 2x2 matrix.
For literally decades, economists, sociologists, psychologists, you name it, they've been endlessly debating the true spark of venture creation. And, I want you to ask yourself this exact question as we start our cartographer's journey today. Where do great businesses actually come from? Is it something innate, or is it something you build? Figuring out the answer to this isn't just some academic exercise. It completely shifts how you allocate your time, your money, and your energy as a founder.
To make sense of this sprawling, sometimes messy academic landscape, we're going to look at a unified framework, one that distills 40 different theories of entrepreneurship into one incredibly simple map. Think about the core debate here. Some scholars view entrepreneurship as a hardwired biological trait. Others, they see it as a calculated reaction to pre-existing market gaps. And then many view it as sheer invention, pulling entirely new realities out of thin air. It's a wild debate, but we can actually organize it perfectly.
All right. Let's start laying down the compass for our 2x2 map. Think of our first axis as the horizontal foundation. This axis constantly contrasts the act of uncovering something hidden versus actively creating a brand new reality. So on one end, you've got discovery, this idea that opportunities are already out there in the real world, just waiting for a sharp entrepreneur to find them. On the exact opposite end, you've got invention, the belief that opportunities literally do not exist until the founder builds them from scratch.
Next up, we add our vertical axis. This one brilliantly captures the difference between tangible, physical resources you can actually touch and the psychological, cognitive truths that exist only in our minds. Basically, are you dealing with physical realities, like geography, demographics, and hard assets? Or are you operating entirely in the cognitive realm, dealing with human behavior, biases, and abstract thought? Now, when we cross that horizontal axis of discovery versus invention with our vertical axis of physical versus cognitive, boom, we generate a 2x2 grid. This creates 4 distinct territories, giving us a definitive map we call the innovation matrix. This isn't just a fancy way to categorize 40 scholarly theories, guys. It's a literal roadmap for founders to pinpoint exactly what kind of game they are actually playing. We're going to explore each of these 4 quadrants to understand exactly how they work.
All right, quadrant 1. Let's start our spatial tour in physical discovery.
This is perhaps the most grounded, traditional way to look at where businesses come from. The crucial point here is that you aren't creating the landscape. You are simply navigating tangible, hardwired demographic or geographic realities that are already there. You're essentially an explorer, surveying the physical world for an advantage that already exists, whether that's a gap in the local supply chain or, say, an aging demographic in a specific zip code. Think of the 19th century gold rush. The gold was already there, right? Someone just had to go find it.
So, if you're applying this quadrant, your strategy relies heavily on finding the right local resource clusters and leveraging spatial advantages to win. You aren't trying to change human behavior or invent some crazy new technology. You're matching demographics to resources. Imagine opening a highly specialized logistics hub in a spot that perfectly connects 2 major manufacturing cities. That, right there, is leveraging physical discovery.
Moving right along to quadrant 2, cognitive discovery.
Moving from the physical world into the human mind, we hit our second discovery territory. Instead of geographic maps, this theory dictates that you are mapping human nature. You're uncovering the natural behavioral dynamics that dictate how markets operate. You're still discovering something that already exists, but it's totally abstract. It's an inherent psychological truth, or maybe a bias that consumers hold. The opportunity is found by understanding how people think way better than the competition does. Like, you might find a massive pricing gap just because consumers perceive value in a specific, completely irrational way.
This is exactly where you see founders leveraging things like asymmetrical risk evaluation, which, by the way, is essentially seeing massive upside where the rest of the market only sees danger. In this quadrant, founders win by having a unique cognitive edge. They can navigate uncertainty thresholds because they evaluate risk differently than everyone else. They uncover behavioral patterns and, quite frankly, they exploit them. It's also a very academic way of explaining the classic founder ego.
Now we cross the center line into quadrant 3, physical invention.
So now we're officially on the invention side of the 2x2 map, completely leaving the realm of finding things. In this territory, you aren't just finding, you're acting as a mechanic. You are tangibly building and restructuring physical resources from the absolute ground up. The market didn't exist, the resources weren't optimized, and the entrepreneur steps in to actively force a new physical reality into existence.
For founders, this translates to gritty, hands-on strategies. We're talking bootstrapping, pulling together resource bricolage, and engineering closed-loop operational architectures. And if you're wondering, resource bricolage basically just means making do with what you have on hand, piecing together completely disparate physical assets to invent a brand new operational loop. It is the ultimate tinkerer's quadrant. Just picture the classic founder building a server rack out of spare parts in their garage. That's physical invention.
Finally, let's explore our last territory, Quadrant 4, Cognitive Invention. This is arguably the most abstract and highly creative territory on our entire map. Here, you're synthesizing completely artificial frameworks. The market doesn't exist yet, and physical assets really aren't the focus at all. Instead, the entrepreneur invents a totally new concept or a new way of living, basically forcing the market to form around it. You're designing models to organize thinking and creating abstract value out of thin air.
This brilliantly illustrates the home of blue ocean mental framing, making the competition completely irrelevant by just inventing a new category altogether. If you can completely redefine what a product means to a consumer, altering their mental framework so much that you have absolutely zero competitors, you are executing flawlessly in the cognitive invention space. You literally construct the market yourself.
Now, zooming out to look at the big picture of this 2x2, you'll realize that a founder might actually structuralize an idea using cognitive invention, like design thinking, while simultaneously being constrained by physical discovery realities, like genetic risk tolerance. Researchers call this theoretical complementarity. Basically, no single quadrant rules them all. A truly great venture often requires blending the mechanics of several quadrants at once.
It is so fascinating to see how the academic consensus has evolved chronologically across this map. It's shifted from analyzing hardwired biological traits to teaching active, operational heuristics like the lean framework. In the past, scholars mostly looked at things like the locus of control, very descriptive trait-based theories. But today, the shift is heavily toward the invention side of our matrix. We're treating markets as endogenous constructs, meaning they aren't just external forces that happen to you, they are realities you actively build from within. For researchers, sure, this matrix acts as an amazing taxonomy to categorize literature and spot gaps across disciplines. But for you as a founder, it is an indispensable tool to audit your strategic assumptions. Think about it. If you believe you're playing a cognitive invention game, but you're spending all your capital on physical discovery realities like geographic clustering, your strategy is totally misaligned. This map helps you diagnose exactly what kind of game you're actually playing.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to look at your own roadmap. Are you hunting for a map that already exists, or are you drawing on a blank canvas? Pinpoint your coordinates on the 2x2, align your resource allocation, and go build something incredible. So I'll leave you with this. Which quadrant is driving your next venture?